Hi everyone, I am your host, Jade Haggard, podcasting from Art Universe Laboratory. Welcome to Artist Solace. Hello again, and thank you for listening. This is episode 11 of Artist Solace, an interview with Leah Whitmire. Leah lives in Indianapolis, Indiana, and works full-time as a music therapist. We learn about how she got started with music and what inspired her to pursue music therapy. She currently works in hospice settings, primarily with patients who are diagnosed with terminal illnesses. Those stories get pretty intense, but are great examples of how music profoundly impacts our bodies. Leah and I seem to have complementary yet interesting interpretations of music, which gives this conversation an engaging element. She is more interested in the aesthetic, quality, and meaning of music, whereas I am more interested in the neuroscientific and psychological aspects. This balance actually allows for a really unique dynamic in our conversation, and one I can foresee as growing into more projects down the road. There's so much more to this conversation too. It's hard not giving too much away. So I'm going to stop there with the information. I hope you take time to listen and can extract some inspiration and solace from Miss Leah. Music therapy and music in general is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Therefore, I am excited to release this episode. My time with Leah has been truly inspiring. I really admire her. After re-listening to this episode, I started practicing my piano again. Yeah, it's that good. Oh, and we also learned we were born 2 days apart. My birthday's on December 4th, and hers is on December 6th in 1986. So we're like almost the same person. It's a really fun conversation, people. I hope you enjoy it. We are here at Art Universe Laboratory recording another episode of Artist Solace. Today in the laboratory, I have joining me Leah Whitmire. Leah is a musician, and she works full-time as a music therapist.
Yes.
Splendid. Leah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Jade.
Absolutely. Music is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, whether it's like what bands I like or like the theory itself. So I've been excited to do this one again.
Yeah.
To talk about interview a music therapist again. Mm-hmm. The second person I interviewed, Corey Seitz, is actually going to school for music therapy.
Oh.
So I really
Awesome.
I really enjoyed it. So we're going to talk about what your journey has been like pursuing music, and then more specifically music therapy. We're going to talk about what you're doing right now.
Okay.
So what do you do now?
So right now I work for a locally owned hospice, home health, and palliative care company. It's called Paradigm Health. It just celebrated its, I think, 7th anniversary. I'm not sure, 6th anniversary. But I think it's really been up and running really about 5 years. And I actually started the music therapy program there. They didn't have music therapy before I came on. And they wanted music therapy for their hospice. So.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So they were They were looking for a music therapist because they wanted to begin a program there. They basically wanted to hire a music therapist there.
5 years ago?
Actually, it was about 2.5 years ago. So It took them a little while. And one of the marketers, Dawn, she was really pushing, we need to have music therapy, because it's something that many hospice companies offer, not all, and some do away with their music therapy programs, unfortunately, if they have, it was usually maybe one of the first things to cut, but in hospice care, which is the Medicaid, it's like a benefit, the hospice benefit. There's certain services that are required on it. Like if you are eligible for hospice care, which means you've been diagnosed with 6 months or less to live due to a chronic illness, you have to have certain symptoms of that and meet certain criteria. Then you'll be eligible to receive these benefits. So nursing is one of the benefits that will come with it. Home health aid, so someone to help out with your hygiene. because you're probably not going to be too able to get up and get showered and stuff.
Right.
And then chaplain, because end of life is a very spiritual time for a lot of people.
So what's a chaplain?
The chaplain would be a like a clergy person or a person who's trained to provide spiritual care.
Okay.
Yeah, so they kind of, and it's not necessarily any certain religion, but it's just sort of more that ministering to the spirit for people. So they're trained to sit with people, kind of face those big questions or help them connect to their own, spiritual resources or, because a lot of times maybe if you're not able to get up, you might not be able to go to church or you might not be able to do your, meditation walk or whatever it is. So having someone come to you and bring that to you is important.
If they have 6 months to live or something like that, in kind of an extreme case.
Right.
And then they get prescribed music therapy too?
So the other thing that is required to be offered is volunteer and social work. So those are the nursing, the aide, the chaplain, volunteer, and social work. Those are things that are required to be offered by the company. It's like Medicare says if someone has 6 months or less to live, they need to be offered all these things. And so music therapy is not required, but very beneficial because it overlaps with a lot of those other domains. Like, it's like social and emotional support. It can be spiritual support. It can be, physical. It can increase physical relaxation or distract from pain. So it can do many things.
Apparently it does a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, being a music lover, being a musician, you probably know, turn on some music or play some music, and it can have a big effect on you.
Yeah.
And how you're feeling. So.
So you do this full time, Monday through Friday?
Yes, I work for that company full time.
So like how often? How does it work for you? Do you get assigned one patient who has 6 months to live, or do you kind of swing in between patients within the actual hospice facility?
So our company, we do not have a particular hospice facility, but we service people in the community. So we might we might go see someone who lives in a assisted living or in a skilled nursing home, or we might go see someone at their house. So we get referrals through our like word of mouth and contacts, and also like other businesses that know we're good. They like to refer to us, they like our services, so they'll refer more people to us. So it's really, it's kind of that business model if you want to provide a good service, so people will of course make referrals to you so you can help more people.
It's that idea of being competent and the best at what you do,
right,
to get more business.
Yeah, and especially at such an important time in people's lives. You only pass away once, and so you only have that chance once to make that a good death for someone.
It's absurd, but I'm laughing at it.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that's true.
Yeah, you're already tapping into the end-of-life humor.
Yeah. So you play saxophone?
So I do. Saxophone was my primary instrument growing up. I studied it in, all through grade school, and then I studied it in college. I almost got a music performance degree on saxophone. And then, I kind of switched directions and I went into music therapy, which has you focus. You still have a primary instrument. It could be voice, saxophone, piano. It could be any instrument that you are really proficient at, but you also have to take up guitar, piano, and voice, because as a music therapist, you're going to be doing a lot of singing with people. You're going to be doing a lot of accompanying people singing, and you're going to be doing a lot of other things that you can't necessarily do on a flute or saxophone only. So,
I see.
Yeah. You could do a lot of things on those instruments, playing for people, playing with people, helping someone to write a song and then playing that on the instrument. But a lot of kind of typical music therapy that I've done involves singing with people or playing guitar or another instrument like that. So I don't bring my saxophone to work very often, but when I do, I really enjoy that because it's just a little bit harder to fit into what I'm trying to work on with people.
Okay, so you're saying most of the time you would have to sing, and so that would require a guitar?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I could like say I want to help someone relax. I could bring in my saxophone and play, beautiful melodies for them. Another issue is maybe they're in a room with a roommate, and maybe the roommate, maybe I want to try to keep the volume down. So that's another reason that guitar and voice work so well.
Okay.
So, there's
saxophones tend to get pretty loud.
Yeah, they can be pretty loud.
Okay.
So, it's like there's different reasons to use the guitar and the voice. What?
Watch your hands.
Oh, okay, thanks.
So.
Yeah. There's different reasons to use those instruments also. Maybe the guitar is a very familiar instrument to many people. It can be comforting. Maybe their loved one played the guitar, or especially the piano. A lot of people have studied piano. That doesn't mean that they ever want to play it again, or they, but those are familiar instruments to people that can be comforting, and you can really accompany yourself well with.
So would you say if they wanted to hear piano, would you bring a piano in to the facility, like an electric?
You could. So I'd say that I'm better at guitar than piano, even though I'm proficient at piano, which means I can accompany myself singing and play, a melody on the piano. I don't have a lot to show off with on the piano,
Okay.
if that makes sense. I can get by on it. So, if someone asked me to, I'd bring it in and I'd play my best for them, kind of like the little drummer boy. I would play for them. But a lot of times, I use recordings in my work as well. If someone wants to hear Rachmaninoff or something, there's no recreating that for me. Maybe another music therapist, but not
Right.
me. Maybe someone who studied piano as their primary instrument might have that gift. But for me, my gift is that I have access to a lot of recordings, and I can bring that in and, tailor a session in a way that's going to be supportive to that person to listen to Rachmaninoff in a way that's going to be beneficial to them. So if that's what they wanted, or if that's what seemed like it would be beneficial, if they like that kind of music, or so.
So how long have you been actively working
as a music therapist?
Yeah.
So this October will be my 7th year.
7?
Yeah, isn't that wild?
See, and when I met you, I couldn't remember. Even George and I were talking about this. I couldn't remember if you were actively working as a music therapist or if you were in school about to graduate. I can't remember. But 7 years? Wow.
Yeah.
Because it seems like such a new... I mean, I guess you can say it is kind of a new, quote-unquote, field.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So where did you go to school? Like, what?
So I, like I said, I was close to graduating, and I'm originally from Arkansas.
Arkansas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
Part of my story is sort of like the places that I moved, and the time frames, like I lived in Arkansas until I was 21. When I turned 22, I guess that was about the time when I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and then I was finishing my degree at University of Louisville because I knew they had...
Finishing your degree?
Finishing.
So you started in Arkansas?
So I started the music performance degree in Arkansas, and a music therapy degree is still a music degree. You still have to have music history, music theory, ear training. That's a hard class. You have to have all that stuff, and you have to have your primary instrument. You have to play in ensemble, so you have to be a real musician, a real classically or jazz trained musician, here in America. And so, and then you also have the music therapy components on top of that. So it was sort of like, I say finishing because I had almost a whole music degree. And I transferred, changed schools, switched my major to therapy, and that added about 3 years. I did have to...
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Why? Like, because psychology classes? Or
so a lot of it was music therapy requirements, music therapy classes. Normally, you could probably finish a music therapy degree in 4 or 5 years. It's meant to be a 4-year degree, but I guess... maybe I would have had to have taken more classes at a time. I don't know, just the pace of it. I did have to take all the music therapy techniques class, which is where you learn how to create music interventions. So say you've got this person and they need to work on this, how would you work on that in music? How can you build a music experience that's going to help someone do this? You know?
So kind of alter their behavior in a sense?
You could say that, or promote insight, you know, or, and so kind of, you know, whichever way you're working, if you're working behaviorally, you know, I want Johnny to, you know, to connect with his peers. So today we're going to have a sharing, you know, song where we have to share the instruments or something. So you're helping to teach that behavior, you know, or it could be a thing where you've got Carla over here. I'm making up all these names. You've got Carla, you know, and she's been struggling with her, you know, depression or something. And so you have a song, and maybe you take out, it's a familiar song, but you take out some of the words and you let her fill in her own words to kind of like focus on her strengths or something.
Oh, that's
so,
interesting.
You know, so you're helping her to reflect over.
So those would be considered music therapy techniques then?
Those would be, so I guess there's techniques, and then interventions are created from the techniques. Yeah, so I would say those would be interventions. Whereas techniques, I might say like songwriting is a technique.
Okay.
Singing, like song recreation. So like if your favorite song is I Will Survive, and you know, whatever, we want to sing that together. We're not listening to Gloria Gaynor, but we're recreating that song. Or you've been working on drums, and we're gonna recreate this song, and you're gonna play that drum part on there. So recreating, improvising is a music therapy technique, which would be, you know, just spontaneously in the moment creating music. It could be based on like a prompt or a cue, like think about the ocean, and then we're gonna play, or it could just be play how you're feeling, or you know, play. So yeah, I love improvisation. That's one of my favorite techniques. And then receptive music therapy. A receptive music could be listening to a song where you're not actively doing anything, but you're just taking that in. And so there's a lot of different techniques or interventions that you could make based on listening to music, like having a song discussion where you listen to a song and then you talk about what you heard and what it meant to you. I'm probably leaving one off, but I feel like I said five different things: improvisation, songwriting, song recreation, receptive music. I always think that moving to music should be its own, but I think that falls under receptive because you're listening and then you're moving, but I don't know.
Wouldn't that be dance?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah.
Or you said receptive.
I feel like some people consider that a receptive technique because like the music goes in
technique, and
then you're moving, but I think of music and movement as the fifth.
Yeah. So what inspired you to get interested in music therapy?
That's a good question. I guess for me, a couple of different things kind of along the way. Because I, to be honest, had no idea really what it was. I'd heard of it, and I thought that it sounded boring. I was like,
when you had therapy, you're like, as
exactly. More of like
context to it.
Well, we have to do this, and it's not fun. So I'd heard of it, and I just thought like, oh, that sounds like older adults playing paddle drums, like working on range of motion. Like I'm like, this sounds terrible. But when I was in probably 20 years old, I started working at a vitamin store, and I got into yoga, and I got into nutrition, and so I got kind of on this different bend in my life. Like I hadn't really understood how to take care of myself, like my body, I'd even say in my emotions, until I sort of tapped into yoga for myself. And it was a big change because I realized I could listen to the inner voice, like the inside. You know, I kind of took it as a spiritual thing, you know, kind of like it was God could show me how to take care of myself. Like I was tapping into something, a larger wisdom, I felt like.
When you did yoga?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And through doing yoga.
When you were 20?
Yeah, when I was about 20. And so, you know, and then I was working at this vitamin store, and I was, you know, getting into this more, you know, healthy way of being. And one thing that happened was I went to a massage therapist, and she did tune-ups, which was a sound healing practice with the tone chimes.
Okay.
So you lay on her table, and in this tune-up, it only costs $20. And this was $20 that I made busking outside the Waffle House. So this was like the universe like setting me up. It was like I played music. This random man gave me $20. He's like, you just keep doing what you're doing. He's like, thank you so much,
20. Man,
$20.
That seems pretty...
It was awesome.
Seems like a lot for busking, man.
Yeah. I mean, I was like working at the Waffle House and I just like went outside and played my saxophone. Like, I'm like, well, no one's here. It's second shift, I'm just gonna. And then this man, he's like, I think you're doing a really beautiful thing and, keep doing it or whatever. So I saved that $20 and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a tune-up. I'm going to go get some sound therapy or whatever, from this lady. And so I did. And I feel like that was the first time that I kind of like experienced someone doing something like that to me, even though in music therapy we don't necessarily always use sound healing techniques. Like I feel like music therapy doesn't really incorporate as much of the vibrational healing as maybe sound healers do or energy workers do. It was sort of like part of me kind of, I feel like starting to move in that direction, opening up to it. So like those were some experiences I had, but then basically I was in a really bad relationship when I was 21, and I kind of needed like anything to help me get out of it, and someone suggested, why don't you just move to Louisville and study music therapy, because you're trying to help this one person that you're with, and you're never going to be able to help him, like he's clearly not going to change. But you love helping people, so why don't you try and help other people? And you could use your music. Like, why don't you, think about that? And I'd actually dropped out of school. Things were so bad in my personal life. I wasn't able to go to school, so I had dropped out like my senior year. Things were
high school?
College.
College.
So that's when I was like about to get that music performance degree. And I just said, you know what? Like basically nothing good is going on here for me. I will give it a shot, and so yeah, because I didn't have any student debt at that time. I had a scholarship, Oh,
wow.
So like, student debt and all that stuff wasn't really on my radar. Luckily, my parents were really supportive of me and they wanted me to get the heck out of there, so they were really supportive, and it definitely added to my debt going to University of Louisville, but luckily I didn't have any before, so maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But yeah, so I just thought this lady, it was my boss at the vitamin store, that Miss Brenda, who told me that. And it had been a while since I'd worked for her, but, I just went in to visit her one day, and so she kind of planted that bug in my ear. And it was, it was calling me back to that, wanting to help people and wanting that healing part of me that I had been sort of tapping into and getting to know.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to keep music in my life.
Yeah.
Like I was getting far enough on my path that I knew I wanted to do something with music, but I actually had no idea. And also before kind of some of that bad stuff had started happening, I had started asking around, like, what about the connection between music and psychology? Like, I started asking my professors about it. And someone probably even said, like, well, you should look into music therapy.
So before your boss planted that thought in your mind.
Right.
Okay.
It was like, because I remember my senior year, I had started getting really into improvisation and getting really into Thelonious Monk because I did a presentation on him.
Who's Thelonious Monk?
He's a jazz pianist.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
For some reason I'm associating him with Shakespeare, but that's an absurd association.
But his name's Thelonious, so I mean, weird, how could you not, right? Yeah, so he was this kind of eccentric jazz pianist, and he did cool things with rhythm. I feel like after listening to him, I was able to do something different with my playing on the saxophone when I was improvising. And also, I'd already been to Louisville because I went to their jazz, Jamie Aebersold jazz workshop. So that's how I knew about Louisville, and I had done that, a few summers prior. So everything was telling me, like, stay in music, and I didn't want to lose that, but I was willing to sacrifice what I had going on there, Sometimes I regret not finishing my music performance degree, but it's like I had to make that transformation and I had to start going in a different direction.
Yeah, you had to get out of it. You had to run away from that.
Yeah. And even when I tell my story now, I always have to try to remember to give myself more credit, because I chose that for myself,
Right. Right.
even though those bad things were going on in my life, that was still, like, I did that. So it's something to be proud of.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, I mean, you still could probably finish it, couldn't you? Or would you have to go back to the original college?
I would probably just I'd probably just get a master's or something like that, because I think when you start at a new school, you have to retake all your private lessons. Like, those actually don't transfer. You can't, because I had already done, like, enough lessons at my old school to have them all. Whatever. I shouldn't have had to take any at University of Louisville, but they oh, sorry, those don't transfer. So I had to, retake all the private lessons. So
I guess that would make sense, because they kind of want to understand your competence level as a musician.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it did make sense to me, but I was also like, that's not fair. But, I graduated with a bachelor's of the arts in music. So, I mean, in some ways, why am I crying? I didn't do a senior recital, I didn't, sort of put the cherry on top of my saxophone studies. But,
so what was it about Thelonious Monk then? You said you were getting interested in Thelonious Monk and
and I was also getting interested in Meredith Monk. I don't know. I was getting interested in all these monks.
His daughter?
No, but she's a performance artist, and it was
Are they related?
No, but when I was at the library, I was getting out all the Thelonious Monk CDs, and I found her CD, Meredith Monk, because she was right next to it, and her album was called Turtle Dreams. And it is as weird as it sounds. It's mostly voice and hardly no words, and just these things that are. So I feel like I was touching new places in music, and it was I don't know. I feel like I've never really quite picked up where I left off from that, getting deep into that. But I think I just took it with me, and now it's sort of transformed into the way I do music now. Because I'm not necessarily, improvising jazz all the time. I was starting to in my senior year. Because I was, getting to solo on some of the jazz concerts and stuff. It's I was finally getting to shine, and then I had to stop. But I've also always been interested in composition. And that's something I've never really gotten to study as well. So, if I ever went back, maybe I would either do a master's in jazz performance or composition. Those are my two territories of music that I'd love to just go all the way in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you play around town here?
I've been starting to.
Starting to,
yeah. Do you know Hoagies and Hops? Chili Water? What are you looking at me like that for?
Because that's 2 blocks from here.
Yeah.
And George and I actually go there on some Tuesdays after I record.
Oh, cool.
And release. We'll make a point to go there and have a blood orange IPA, which is delicious.
I have drank those. So
they're
good.
amazing. So yes, I'm aware of that. That's a new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a new establishment, and I think it's going to turn out really well.
Oh yeah. I just noticed they have those tables out there. I feel like that was new.
That's where we sat yesterday after I recorded.
So cool.
So you play there?
Well, one time I did. Actually, I sang there. Because on Thursday nights they have jazz there.
Thursday nights?
And it's really good, yeah. At least they were. I don't know if they still do, but they were. I think it's a long-standing thing they're kind of doing. I don't know if they're taking a break over the summer, but I was had a few of those blood oranges, if you know what I'm saying.
Dude.
And I was like, if you need me to sing a song, I will. And then I found out it was a jam, and they were like, sure, sign the paper and you can sing.
Oh, that moment at that night?
Yeah! But I had secretly been practicing a jazz song, so I was actually prepared, and I knew what.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I was like, okay. So that was really fun. And, even though, singing as a vocalist in jazz is kind of a little bit easier in my mind than, doing it as a saxophonist. Either A, because I've been singing every day, full-time for 7 years and playing the saxophone only infrequently. Or B, because the vocalist isn't necessarily required to solo. They sing the melody and the lyrics, and then the musicians improvise and solo, and then they sing the melody again. Whereas if you're a saxophone player, you have to play the melody and then take your turn improvising over the chord changes, and then play the melody again. So I think there's a little more pressure on the instrumentalist, to be able to.
I would think so.
So I kind of liked singing.
Which song was it? What song were you?
I got to sing two songs. The song I was practicing was "Softly as in a Morning Sunrise."
Never heard of it.
It's really good.
Softly as in a morning sunrise?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Softly as in a morning sunrise, the burning kiss is stealing into a newborn day. Something like that.
Is that an old jazz song?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds... I can kind of tell.
Yeah. It's got that old-timey, like, kind of just straightforward, kind of old...
So you sang that, and then what... So this was like an open jam?
Yeah, because there were these other vocalists that were just, like, really good. Like, they were vocalists.
Okay. Were there instrumentalists there, too?
There were.
And they knew the song, or you just tell them, like, what key it's in, or what?
Yeah, one of the guys is kind of famous around town. I think his name's Charlie Ballantyne. I think his name's Ballantyne, not Valentine.
Okay.
I think. And he's a really good guitarist. And I don't know who the other guys were, but they were great.
Really?
There was, like, a drummer and a bass player, and they were just like the house band. And also one of the bartenders there, one of the waiters, he got up and played tenor saxophone. He's really great. He's playing at the Jazz Kitchen. I saw his poster. So there's like all kinds of...
Which bartender? Is it the Hispanic guy or the...
No, he's African American.
Black guy? Is he skinny? Like tall, skinny?
Mm-hmm.
With like a...
Yeah. His name's not Jeremy or something. I can't remember
his name. What kind of hair would it... Not dreadlocks, but like dreads, but like...
It's got kind of... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I've seen him before. Mm-hmm. So he just came up and started playing.
His saxophone was like under the bar. And
he
just like grabbed it and
he just brings it. He's like bringing it into work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to play.
It was really cool.
So that's on Thursdays.
Yes.
From what time?
Like 7 to 10 or
7 to 10. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing to mention locally. That's not very far from me. Seriously, like a drive.
Yeah.
Less than a minute.
That's so cool.
So I have to try to maybe check that out. Let me know if you ever go.
Yeah.
Or if you're planning on going and
I definitely
doing
will.
any improvising or whatever.
Yeah. I might just go listen, but I might just go, I might drag myself up there, So I'll definitely let you know the next time I'm heading up there.
Bro.
Yeah,
right,
that's cool. Awesome.
Okay, so anything else around town?
Well, the other thing, so, I love jazz. I'm a saxophonist, and I love that kind of music. But also, what I kind of did at University of Louisville was I joined this improv ensemble that was more like experimental improv, which is actually like really what I really like, what I really love.
Experimental improv?
Yeah, I'd call it experimental improv. I don't really know what to call it, or like new music. So it's like composers just sort of like thinking outside the box. Maybe they're like writing a piece that's like uses graphic notation. Do you know about graphic notation?
Not in really relation to music.
So basically it's a score. This is the music that you read off of, but it's got like drawings on it. Yeah! What? And so you basically improvise, like, say there's, like, some squiggly lines and some dots. There could be more parameters or less parameters. Like, someone just showed me a graphic notation that was actually, like, a painting. And I was like, I've never seen one that actually looked like a work of art before.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, you should probably...
So you kind of, like, look at it and then interpret the visual graphics in your own way?
Yeah. And you could do it by yourself, or it could be with others.
I'm imagining like a stanza. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, so I'm holding a sheet and it has several stanzas that represent the entire song. All of the quote-unquote graphic notes are in this form, or can you have like regular notes and then some weird graphics and then...
I think you could do anything. Like, it could be anything. Like, I'm trying to remember. Like, sometimes, because I'd say there's...
I'm going to write that down. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, graphic notation is really neat. And it's one of the ways that I'd say, like, either some new music or improv or experimental music can be, like, played and composed. So it's like, every time you give this to someone, it's going to come out different. But it's all coming from the same, like, seed or your intention, Maybe your intention is for them to have fun with it and to have to try and figure it out, I don't know.
That just brings, like, a whole series of, like,
questions, especially in regards to the written word or symbols. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So how did this? So you were actively participating in.
So when I was at Louisville, that we had a class that was improv group, and then somehow we named our group Bone Crusher, which is actually the name of a hip hop artist.
Intense. Okay,
yeah,
it's already taken.
We already took it, but we were kind of making music as Bone Crusher, and pretty sure we weren't getting confused for this other artist. But we named ourselves an intense name on purpose, because we were just pretty much like, I'd say like shredding or crushing bones. Like we just try to do intense things. Like I wrote a piece, and my friend Jason is going to give me the copy of the score back, because apparently he saved all the music that he ever came across.
Okay.
And I lost it. But it was a graphic notated piece called Colors. And each different color that the conductor would hold up, you had to look at that square, like red, and there was a picture. So you'd have to play what that looked like. And then, like, you could even have one person playing the red and one person playing green at the same time. So you kind of conduct them to, like, play these different sort of moods almost. But anyway, so that's the kind of music I really like to play and to create with people. And I finally have been trying to connect with the classical music indie scene a little bit. And I know that Eric Salazar has been doing stuff with that and having, like, classical music jams at what's it called?
That name
Square
does
Cat.
sound familiar.
He plays
Square
the
Cat?
clarinet.
That's on
down in Fountain Square.
Fountain Square. Okay.
Yeah.
Square Cat Vinyl.
Yeah.
I think that's where George and I went one time last year. I had an art show, and then we had a beer there.
Yeah.
Really music oriented. I loved all like the all the music artwork they had.
Yeah, I haven't been in there in a while, but I know they have records and they have shows a lot and beer, so I don't really know what could be better than that.
Right. Do you play there?
So I haven't made it out to that yet. That's the other part that's hard about maybe being a music therapist, is sometimes at the end of the day you're kind of like a little bit tired, and playing music takes a lot of energy. So sometimes you're just like, I could go, but I could also stay. Like, you
had your fix already.
Yeah. So sometimes, but I'm really trying to, because there's actually going to be a show at Chatterbox, which, do you know the
I've never been there, but I've heard about it.
I really like the Chatterbox.
Do they play mostly jazz?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much primarily jazz.
One of my coworkers goes there a lot, and she's telling me about it, especially when I'm always talking about music.
Yeah.
She'll talk about it. So
yeah, so they're having an sort of experimental new music show there at the end of the month, and me being the mildly persistent person of trying to get what I want, I did let Eric know that
mildly persistent.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty mildly. I don't know. I could be extremely persistent.
That.
I don't know, but I'll go easy on myself. And so yeah, I said I'd be willing to play, and then so there's this group of people that said they'd be willing to play at it. And then basically he's like, okay, well, we've got the show coming up, tell me how long you're going to want to play for. And now I'm like, I need to like have something to play and all this stuff. So that's kind of prompted me to reach out to more people and say, like, do you have any improvisational pieces I could play? Or, like, do you know anything? And so a couple of people in the group like wanted to get together with me, because it's kind of easier to do stuff with other people than it is to just do a solo like by yourself the whole time. So some of the people, and I'm just hopeful that like those people might want to get together and like practice some different improv pieces. Some of them said they would. So I also wrote a graphic notation piece, and I was like, oh well, maybe. So I kind of told them that. So it might get.
And they're familiar with graphic notation?
I didn't tell them it was graphic notation, but I know they are, because I think Eric maybe wrote a piece that was in graphic notation. So. Yeah, I feel like I don't think it's in my purse, but what if it was, Jade? What if I showed it to you? Oh, darn it. I emptied out my purse at the wrong time. Okay, it's not in there. I should take a picture of it, but yeah.
Got my hopes up.
I'm so sorry. I got my hopes up. I was like, oh, maybe it's in there. I keep trying to show it to people. And
that's just really cool. It's a cool thing I keep thinking of. Kind of it seems like it bridges art and visual art and music in a sense. And would force you to improvise, of course, using that visual cue.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sounds cool.
Yeah, I just love that about it, and it forces you to like use your imagination. Like, how do I?
Well, I don't doing things like that. I've read musical improv itself is the ultimate stimulate. One of the ultimate ways you can stimulate your brain.
Wow, I'm gonna start telling everyone that. I love that.
Not only when you play music in general, it's one of the ultimate ways to stimulate your brain. Mm-hmm. That's why it's an amazing thing to actually do, especially if you want to keep your brain more plastic, and if you want to learn new things, and if you just want to be a sharp human being, or if you just want to be smarter.
Yeah.
Play an instrument, people.
Yeah, I love it.
But I've read a long time ago in like Scientific American magazine that if you are improvising on an instrument, it completely stimulates your brain. They show that both like your entire brain is lit up.
Oh my
They did some kind of MRI study where they had some guy go into an MRI machine and he was just improving on a piano.
That's awesome.
And so that right there, that's what kind of sparked my interest more in music and psychology and therapy and how the hemispheres and music's impact on both of your brain hemispheres.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I like to think about.
We'll have to have coffee again, or have another podcast, because I feel like I find that interesting and like exciting too. But then I know so little about brain research that it's like, to me, learning about that, then I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And then what do we do with that? I mean, I guess that's always the next questions, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean that when we improvise, we're all lit up like that, or how can we like use that in a way that's gonna, help people the most? What can you do when you're doing that you couldn't do when you weren't doing that, Another thing.
So maybe you're not as familiar with the psychological or neuroscientific.
That part of music,
part
of music isn't as interesting to me.
Okay.
The parts that are more interesting to me are like the aesthetic, the relational, the phenomenological, like your whole.
What does that mean?
I guess that's a fancy word. That's a $10 word or something like that.
Well, in relation to music, how would you describe that?
Phenomenology is like the essence of the experience. So
essence of the experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere about
performing music, listening to music, just in general.
Yeah, just like what's your experience? Like what's it like for you, and what does it mean to you? And so I'm more into the more philosophical side of music than so much of the like brain science side of it, which we definitely need all kinds. And even hearing you talk about that, mentioning one of my favorite ways of making music as being like one of the most changing in the brains, now that piques my interest a little bit more to say, okay, well, maybe there is something that I would enjoy learning more about it, or that I could actually help out in because of my interest in improvisation. So
like in regards to research.
Yeah.
How is your music actually benefiting your patients?
Right. In their brains, or how does the brain benefit the other work that we're doing? Because sometimes to me the whole neuroscience thing can be a little bit disconnected from maybe like I want to lower my depression, or I want to integrate these parts of myself, it's like, and then the brain, it's like sort of different to me. The brain and psychology, there's like kind of neuroscience and then there's like psychology, and they're kind of
they're different,
but they go together, obviously. Some of the stuff I've read about trauma seems to integrate them a little bit more, and how our bodies and our brains and our our neuro whatever, how they're all interrelated. And so maybe we're still like discovering that, and that's pretty exciting too.
And I'm more fascinated with sound than I am like visual art, like colors, so
sound, I feel like, is, to me, sound is something that you can't not, like, I feel like sound affects like my whole body, whereas like visual, it's almost like it can stimulate my mind or something, but I feel like sound like really.
Do you ever research or study any vibratory aspects of music and its effect
like
on
on
your body?
I was just researching a little bit on some sound healing stuff. And I was thinking, boy, I bet if I got some certifications in that, people would really like that. Because whenever I tell people I do music therapy, they're usually like, do you play tuning forks? Or, like, is it sound therapy? Like, is it sound? So I don't know a lot about, I feel like it's, I'm curious about it. I mean, I know that, like, technically we're, like, vibrating beings. And so, there's, everything is kind of vibrating. I really don't know much about it.
I think that's why it's fascinating, because we don't know anything about it. It's like, what is going on, and why, how the hell are we all just, like, vibrating mechanisms? I think that's where the fascination lies.
Yeah. and also just understanding, like, okay, so this is, like, vibrating, but, like, some things vibrate and you can hear it.
Yeah.
And so it's, like, I guess those are vibrating faster. Like, they're vibrating at the frequency that is audible to us.
That we can perceive, right.
Yeah.
There's only a certain amount of sound we can perceive. Just like there's only a certain amount of color we can perceive. It's like, but it's we're all in that spectrum of sound and touch. There's probably sounds we can't hear, of course. We can't hear anything louder.
Yeah.
But other like dogs can hear different levels of sound.
Yeah.
And there are definitely colors we can't perceive, like X-ray.
Right.
So that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
But it's the fascination. It's the question, like, what is going on that kind of makes it...
I used to always wonder about what color something is when no light is shining on it. Like, I used to think about that because I'm like, my hand looks this color, but what color is it really? It's like, it's only reflecting the light off of it or something.
Yeah.
That would trip me out.
So when the lights turn off,
but I mean,
there's
of course,
no color.
It's dark. Yeah, it's black. I mean, I guess it's kind of like when the tree falls in the forest and and no one's there to hear it. Like, does it make a sound? It's probably that.
I always say yes.
Yeah. 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 I mean, what if everything right now was gray? Like, what if the color of everything was gray? That would be so weird.
It would be boring.
It would be really boring. Yeah. I'm glad the light is bouncing off of everything, making it look the color it is, or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like that could be a similar thing, like with the visual, kind of compared to the sound. Like, what is this really? I think about that stuff fairly often, and it's so nice to meet someone else who does, because, yeah.
So, earlier you were talking about you're interested in the essence of music, and you mentioned two other things.
Yeah, I think I said aesthetics.
Aesthetics.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I said, did I say relational? Or did I say...
I think you did say relational.
Yeah.
So what aesthetics then? Because when I think of aesthetics, I think of visual. Something visual.
Yeah, well, music has aesthetic too. I mean, when you play a major chord, that's an aesthetic. And when you play a minor chord, it has a different aesthetic. So I think aesthetics has to do with beauty, but it also has to do with qualities. And I think that for me, like in music therapy, because that's how I mostly relate to music, but also if I was composing or performing, I would think about, what are the qualities that you can tell about something. Like maybe if you're looking at a beautiful brook and it's sparkling, the water is, it's sparkling, it has that sparkly quality. So like, how could you make that sparkly quality in the music?
Mm-hmm. That would be the aesthetics of it.
I would think so.
Sparkly quality.
Yeah, it would relate to the aesthetic dimension, which, because I think, or a domain, like the aesthetic domain of the music. Some people talk about, do they talk about it? Music as like an aesthetic, temporal, relational thing. So it's like it happens in time, it has these qualities, and I don't know. I'm just saying things I remember reading, but different kinds of domains about music. But yeah, I mean, I think those qualities or the aesthetic component is kind of what touches us about music. It's like, this sounds like a heavy rock, or whatever in the music. And you're like, that's how I feel today, like a big heavy rock. Or maybe it's like, this song is like moving so quick. It's getting me to move so quick. Like I'm cleaning my house, and it's like, I just think it's those qualities of the music, which some might interpret neurologically, as in this is a sound that's beating like this. But as humans, we make meaning out of things and we connect things to other things.
That's a good point.
So, that's just another way of interpreting it. And then to say also, as it relates to like healing and wholeness, I think beauty is healing. And so that when we connect to or create things of beauty that, is healing for us and relates to that aesthetic domain of the music. The music can represent your wholeness, by beginning and ending a note, with like a sense of beauty or a sense of, something. I think it's healing for us as humans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I am really used to always thinking about like the neuroscientific or brain aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's refreshing to hear you describe it more, especially when you say humans attach meaning to music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's probably the most important thing. Research and stuff, I think, is more just to research and show data.
Show why,
and
maybe.
why things improve.
Yeah.
Why music could improve, but then...
We want something measurable.
Yeah.
It's more quantitative, maybe, but I like qualitative research because it's more about the meaning.
Yeah, and the beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's research out there for it, and yeah, like, we've been hearing sound, and maybe it's sound and music. They have meaning, like we've been hearing sound since we were in the womb.
Isn't that the first sense to, I think it's the first sense to develop.
And the last, because I work in hospice,
Really?
and that's what we always say, that, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's the last, so it's the last
last
one.
to go.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
whoa.
Yeah, and I didn't remember that it was the first, but that makes sense, and it's almost like our whole experience of life. There's a book called Nada Brahma, The World is Sound, and it's like going...
What's it called?
It's called Nada Brahma,
Is
which
it
is like
Spanish?
Sanskrit, I think.
Or
It's
Sanskrit? Okay.
Yeah. It means the world is sound. I read it, some persons...
Okay, Brahma kind of sounds more...
That's like God.
Okay.
But I think it's like, I don't know, the translation of it in that sense was like the world is sound. So I think maybe Brahman is like the ruler of the universe or something. Or
Man, I'm thinking of Alan Watts again. He said something about Brahma. Are you familiar with Alan Watts?
I've heard of him.
Okay. He's a philosopher.
Yeah.
He talks about, I know he's mentioned Brahma, so when you say Brahma, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I can't remember even what he talked about, so, anyway, so Nada
Yeah.
Brahma is...
Oh, yeah, it's like the world is sound. And
Okay.
it talks about how, like, everything basically has a sound, or maybe some of it, I don't know if it talks at all about the sound of the world. Maybe that's someone else who talks about, like the sound of the environment. But just thinking back to that book, because I was thinking of it earlier when we were talking, and then I thought, well, if the first sense you develop is hearing, and the last sense to go is hearing, then the world is sound. Like, that's the beginning of your world and the end of your world. And that's pretty profound, I think. It's kind of like the thread that runs through. I don't know. It's pretty wild.
So what's your experience been like? Do you work with mostly people who are about to die?
Mostly. Now, some of the people I've worked with have been on our service for 2 years or more.
Are they about to die?
I
Or
mean,
they just survive?
Medically, they are, very fragile. They're close,
Is there a term for it? Like, if they're about to die?
Well, there's different sort of levels. Like if someone when their body starts to shut down, then we would say when they're actively dying. That's when the body is actively shutting down. And so that's like your last day, your last days, usually the active dying phase doesn't last for more than a couple of days. You might say that someone's transitioning either to that active dying phase, or everyone's death that I've noticed has been very different. You think once you've worked in hospice for a year and a half, you're like, I've seen them all. I've seen every way that a person could die, like every tempo of dying, every, tonality, like every key or modality of dying. You think you know them all. And then you hear a completely new death song. It's like this person is sitting up at their table and they're still sitting up, but yet they're like about to die. It's just like no one has the exact same process of going into that.
Say that about being birthed too. No one has no delivery is the same.
That's wild.
So another correlation.
Yeah.
Between birth and death.
Yeah.
So there are different stages in. So everybody.
Yeah, and usually we'll note decline in patients, which we have to document their decline. Like maybe all of a sudden.
You do as a music therapist or?
I note it in my, if it's something that I can observe, because like I have no nursing training, so I can't really report on their vital signs or anything, but I can say like the facility staff report patient, eating less. So I can sort of provide supporting
documents. Do you have to keep
documents.
a journal then?
We have to document every session and say what we did and, how the patient responded, how they were doing, because that is part of the Medicare, stuff. And since I started the program, I'm like, well, we're part of the clinical team, so we're going to be documenting. Like, that's what music therapists do. We're therapists. We document our work, So I enjoyed making sure that everything was set up as I thought it should be, for us to be, like, a legit part of the treatment team.
So what are some interesting experiences you had? What comes to mind?
Oh, my gosh.
The most interesting?
I'm trying to think while still, like, maintaining confidentiality.
Oh, true.
Yeah, so I'll just be general.
Names or...
Be general. I mean, I've seen some amazing things. For instance, like, I'm thinking of a person that I worked with, and it was the woman, it was the wife, and she was actively dying. I can't remember what her diagnosis had been. It might have been, I just don't want to give too many specifics, but she was struggling to breathe. She wasn't really responsive, so she was kind of out of it, but her breath was very... sometimes at the end of life, people get kind of a rattle. Some people call it the death rattle. I forgot what the proper name for it is, but it makes this gurgling sound.
I kind of think of like... or
kind of like that, but fluid fills in the lungs.
Oh, fluid. Oh, okay. Yep, so, that is one of the...
Yeah. And so this woman was struggling to breathe, and, you could hear that her lungs had fluid in them, and, the family was very tearful, and they were worried about her suffering, And so I started playing, sort of trying to match the tempo of her breathing, which was kind of a little bit irregular, but try to provide a steady pace that she could match to. And I was, like, accompanying hymns with this steady plucking rhythm on my guitar and singing in a very calming voice some familiar hymns, and her breath, like, regulated. She was still having kind of the gurgling sounds, but she was able to, like, her breathing improved, and the family saw that she responded, and we were, like, all together, like, in this moment, like, kind of following this rhythm together. And, I mean, that was really profound.
That freaking gives me goosebumps. Do you get goosebumps when you do that?
Sometimes. For me, like, I get this, like, sense of, like, awe, like, all around. Like, when you're in those moments, it's just, like, this sense of, like, kind of sacredness and, specialness that's just, like...
Would you call it, like, a transcendental experience?
Maybe, kind of...
I don't know if you use that nomenclature.
Yeah, well, it's, transcendental, transpersonal. For me, it's almost like a peak experience, because it's, like... everything's heightened, and you're in the moment so fully, and you just your sense of time changes, and you're just so focused on that one person or their family. You just have such...
So her breathing actually improved while you're actively playing the song.
She was, although she couldn't respond to anything, she was able to match the rhythm of the guitar with her breath, which I think really gave everyone a sense of comfort. That she wasn't having to, like, sort of struggle and, like, maybe breathe fast and then breathe slow. She was just sort of, like, staying right there with us. It was like her rhythm, was able to steady during the music. And her family all saw it. So it wasn't just, like, me. Because sometimes you can't really tell. It's like, am I helping? Is this working? Right. We're trying to make some beauty here. We're trying to provide support. By that time... it was like we were all on the same page, and it was just like so wonderful, and the family was incredible. Very appreciative. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's one of my, like, most poignant memories of really feeling like I really, really helped someone at the end of life. I have other memories. I've had people pass away in my presence, like whether while I was playing for them, or even like after a song, like right at the end of a song. That's happened.
How do you feel when that happens? Like after that's all said and done.
I mean,
you play for someone and they pass away. What do you do when you go home at night?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great...
Do you get to know these people? Or?
Well, it depends. Sometimes you get really close relationship with them. Like I've had people that I've worked with for like a year and a half, or more, and those people are the ones that I feel like I'm as much of their bereaved, in a sense, as their family, although of course I'm not, but you still feel like, wow, I'm really going to miss this person. And there's other people that you walk in and they're actively dying and you going to start playing a song, so it's like really challenging to like go into that, not knowing them and try to make a relationship, with their family or whatever, try to figure something out about this person to connect with them. And, I think that's why it's a good thing, that like a lot of people like gospel music, and then you can just sort of get songs that they're familiar with. Or if they like country music, you can kind of go in with that. Or,
wait, so do you know what they like when you go in, or you have to go in and assess the situation?
So sometimes people will tell us. Sometimes like even our marketers will find out this information. Like they'll ask. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it doesn't come up. So, if we are able to call their family, which we usually always call their family, and ask, hey, tell me about your loved one, tell me how I could serve them best, and maybe tell me if they played an instrument or if they like music, what type of music is comforting for them. So you try to get that information. But even sometimes it's hard because people are very general when they talk about music. They're like, oh, she likes, oldies. You're like, oldies? What does that mean?
Oldies?
Like 80s music? No, just like music from the 1920s, but a lot of it also you look at their age. So, if they're like 80 or something like that, you'll want to go back to the music from when they were like maybe in their 20s or something like that, or their teens, or you just know what was popular in their time. It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging to know, and, you're always just kind of going off of their response. Like, does it seem like this music is relaxing them, or does it seem like they're like kind of getting more agitated, So then you kind of change something that you're doing to try and see if it's the music or if they would just need more medicine, or like what is it that's...
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, so anyway, like, so how does that... So when someone passes away, how does that affect you? I think I asked, like, what...
Yeah.
So how do you feel when you go home at night?
Yeah, I usually feel tired.
Mm-hmm.
When I have to, be with people whose loved one is like actively dying or whatever, I feel tired, really tired when I go home. I don't usually think about it a lot, unless it was someone that I was close to, and then, I'll feel sad. But that's something that I'm kind of working on a little bit in my personal counseling, is to try to like not suppress my feelings. Because I think you have to go in so much, and you're dealing with so much sadness that it's easy to just sort of cut yourself off from your feelings. So I had a recent experience where I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm suppressing my feelings. Then I let myself feel my feelings, and then I felt wiped out for the rest of the day. So I'm trying to find like the right amount. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, this,
And you still struggle with that even after 7 years?
Well, I've actually only worked in hospice for 2 years.
Ah, okay.
So before that, I worked with people with developmental disabilities as a music therapist. That's probably what I was doing when we met. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which is lighter. It's lighter work, but it is still very serious work to work with people with developmental disabilities.
Now
there's a lot
like
of
death and serious illness and
now it's more medically focused and a lot busier. In my old work, I had like 20 clients. I saw them at the same time every week. Some of them I worked with for like 4 years, and it was very predictable as far as my routine. Now, what was going on for that person that day, not predictable at all. As one person I used to work with would say, it's never the same day, but in hospice, it's like, the medical field can be stressful. It's never ending. It's like always going on, so I think that's something that is harder about this work, but it's also keeps you engaged. So there's also that, like, I wake up more excited for my job now than I used to because I feel like, oh, someone might need me today, and
seems to be more meaningful, like way more meaningful,
more exciting. And, working with people with developmental disabilities, I felt like maybe didn't feel like I was as appreciated, as a music therapist working with that population. Whereas in hospice care, you get so much praise from so many people, including the company I work for, which the company I work for is amazing. So it could have something to do with the culture of my workplace. There's lots of different reasons why, but
what's the company called again?
They're called Paradigm Health.
Paradigm Health.
Yeah.
And they're a good company to work for.
They sure are.
Man.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if you know any nurses, CNAs, physical therapist, occupational therapist.
I'm actually starting to get my degree in nursing.
Oh, wonderful.
Because I'm searching for something more meaningful and more stable hours and that's still lucrative.
Oh, yeah. That's very exciting.
It's going to be 3 years.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in psychology. I kind of want to go down the psychology track. I maybe want to get my master's in what's it called? Psychological mental health nurse practitioner.
Oh, very cool.
Music therapy sounds interesting to me. I just can't really play an instrument that proficient enough to where when you go into music therapy school, do you have to know an instrument proficiently?
You're going to have to audition. So you're going to have to be able to, show basic competencies as far as being able to...
I've always wondered that. And I'm like, I don't even know. But
Have you ever thought about art therapy?
Yeah, I did. I was actually going to apply for the art therapy program at Heron, but I'm not as interested in visual art like I thought I was. Like I said, I'm more interested in sound.
Yeah.
I'd rather get into music, the psychology of music, and that's why I'm just
Yeah, well, I say whatever avenue that you get into. Me and a couple of my friends were working on a research project where we're having a conversation about music as an intervention across different disciplines. And, there's a real need for, psychologists and music therapists and ethnomusicologists and music educators to dialogue. Because right now, people are like, music, it's great. Let's throw music at this problem or whatever. But there's not, real dialogue among the different disciplines to say, how can we use music as an intervention? What are the skills we need? What are the,
It is, what I've thought, too? It's also unfortunate that we have to start... the way that we're implementing music into people's lives is making it a therapy. It's we should already be singing and playing music, but
right. Yes.
Brings to mind that question of why is it not already ingrained into our culture, our family lives?
Yes, I love that you said that because I was reflecting on that today at my work. I was like, man, I'm working with really sick people and they need help. But I also wonder what this would look like for people that are just,
already musicians who already have music in their life.
Or I just feel like there's so much more we can do. Why we're not a preventative culture. We're not it's we're on the other end where people are already in trouble, so we're trying to help them. But
I know, it's we're being prescribed music therapy,
exactly.
It's a pill bottle or something.
And instead, why don't we improve our culture and our community by using music? And that's more, could be a different side of it, enhancing your community or, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you get down to the individuals and then how can they impact their families and the community with music?
Yeah.
I wonder, man, I don't know. People are usually just not interested to try to learn how to play because it's hard. I'm trying to learn how to play guitar. It's hard, but...
It is hard.
It's good for you. It's good for your family. And, one other thing I think is that we have such a... our view on musicians is so... What's the word?
Either you're a musician or you're not. Kind of put them on a pedestal.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, and I'm trying to think a word, but it's man, if I want a musician, I have to try to be big time. I have to want to play in a band, and I have to associate
it's kind of all or nothing.
Yeah. That's what I would think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as a music therapist, I'm all the time trying to get people to play music with me, both in my personal life and at work. And, I do find that a lot of people, they put up those walls, and working with people with dementia, it's pretty easy to do something musical and they'll do it back, and it's
really?
I think it's human nature, to be musical. But we kind of we're not going to do that. And I find that... we, like classical music education is very hard. Like it's kind of like an upper thing, like, but folk music is like a part of everyone's roots. Like everyone's culture has a folk music, and like simply keeping a rhythm and like singing a simple melody, or strumming simple chords. And I know it's hard to get those chords out at first, like it takes a little while to
transitioning in between.
Yeah, and just to even get your fingers on them. I remember when I was first learning guitar, and I was like, I'm never gonna get this. Like I put it away for a long time because I was like, I'm just too frustrated, But even like the banjo, or so there's
Have you tried playing banjo?
I can make music on the banjo. I can't play the banjo, but I can like make, what I'm saying? Like it's easier to make a chord on than the guitar. Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think our standards for what music is and what it means to be in music are kind of like messed up. And, everybody's had that shaming experience of being told that they're doing music wrong or something like that. And I don't think people know enough ways that they can do music. Yeah.
Kind of snarky. Some people make snarky remarks.
Yeah. I mean, most everybody's had, like, an experience of that, I feel, A lot of people have that totally blocked them off from it. But I think there's ways of making music in the community that I don't even know all of them, but I know that I make really simple music with people, and it's just as meaningful as any saxophone sonata I could play, with the whatever. Just, like, that connecting and interacting in music, I think, and having fun with it. But so I really agree with you that it's like that kind of music is like not really in our culture as much anymore.
It's so commercial. I want to say commercialized, materialized. Mm-hmm. Like we only see big stars on TV, and that's what you have to do if you're a musician.
See, music has become like a product, but really music, there's like it's like a commodity, like you said, but there's this one guy named Christopher Small, and he wrote a book about like being in music. And so there's another thing that sometimes music therapists or ethnomusicologists will say, it's called musicking. And that's like anything that has to do, we're musicking right now because we're talking about music. So like going to a concert, you're musicking, or like taking a slide trombone and like making farting sounds on it, like you're musicking. Like all these things that have to do with music are musicking. They're ways of being in music, and I think we just need to
make it into a verb.
Yeah.
Go in music.
Yeah. It's like, that's why I think that relational part of music also really appeals to me, because it's what brings people together.
Relational part, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It like brings people together, and you have a relationship to music, and you have a relationship to your family, and your family has a relationship to music, and it's like doing music together like strengthens those relationships and makes you closer. And so I think that that's another really important part of music.
Yeah, it could be a great way just to bring the community together. Yeah. And it makes you smarter. Like, there's all these other aspects, neuroscientific, psychological aspects of music. If you want to do better in school, learn how to learn how to read music, play it, and it'll help you concentrate. It'll stimulate your brain and make it plastic.
Or go to your community drum circle and play. I bet that would improve your schooling as well. It doesn't have to be, westernized music. Think about the music of all the world's cultures, like they aren't reading music. Like they learn it by rote in their communities, and so, I mean, there's so many different ways that people can learn music.
You want to be feel a little happier every day? Play music. Yeah. I was learning guitar from February to March. Mm-hmm. And then I did an open mic and did terrible. Oh, I sucked accordingly. Yeah. You should do terrible at your first open mic. And I just, I haven't played since. And I'm like, I think because I learned where I was. Yeah. Like, I stepped outside of my lane and tried to go a little faster. And I'm like, okay, let me get back in my lane. And maybe I shouldn't focus on that right now. I'll do podcasting and and try to learn music later. Mm-hmm. But I noticed a difference. I think I'm a little more, I was happier. Mm-hmm. I felt more happier and more content and smarter when I was learning guitar and piano. And you're able to pick up more if you're trying to learn a new language. Mm-hmm. Do you do any research on that, or have you learned about that?
Not really. I know I took German. I took German in college, and that was, I felt like my brain was growing all the time because I was walking around thinking in German. You know, I was like trying to build sentences.
And you're a musician too, so it's probably easier for you. So yeah. So I noticed from not playing music that I'm I have less energy, I feel like. And who knows if that's even what it really is. It could be other things, but
it sounds like you really maybe notice those effects of things that kind of help you with like your brain and just like your mood, like that you really notice that music is one of them and just like other things. It seems like those really motivate you and make you feel like I want to get some more of this.
Music's definitely a motivation. Even when I was working on art, I would get motivated by listening to music.
Wow.
So
yeah.
Whatever.
Aww. There's another kind of music therapy that I do that combines music and art, and it's really cool. And I don't know how much time we have.
I'm a few more minutes. They're actually at an hour and 14.
Okay.
So actually, since about an hour, I'm like, we need to wrap this up soon. But
yeah.
Well, I don't really have any time constraints.
Okay.
Now, so I'd say like 10 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So. Well, I don't know. We've talked about so many.
I know.
Amazing things, and
I definitely want to have people back on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking next year I want to try to get more into video. I don't want to have guests on that I've had.
It'd be fun to do something where we could talk about music and then like we could play it or something.
Yeah.
You know, like talk about some different concepts in music or. You never know. When you said video, I thought, well, but then you don't have to have video for that. You could just do it with audio, but it's fun to watch people.
Maybe this will help, get me off my butt. I have, instruments like all day. I have my own little family. For me to actively keep playing, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of motivation.
Yeah, I understand. I have a piano and, I don't hardly ever practice my guitar. Even though I play it every day. And
you play it every day. You don't do that.
But it's hard to grow, It's like, I want to learn that picking pattern. It's like, well, I just got home from work. Guess what? I don't feel like practicing, So I think it's a struggle to motivate yourself to practice. And I think having people to keep you accountable or things.
That's true. Because I've said that too. It's like, man, I wish it's better playing music with people. And I've tried kind of setting up a practice every week with different people in the past, and I've tried to find the right people to play with.
Yeah.
In the past, I think that's been an issue too. Is me just actually finding people to hold you accountable, like what you said. I'm like, okay, well, let's practice this song, and okay, I have to practice this song, and maybe be good at it by next week. That's what that would be.
Yeah.
Besides myself.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd love to do something like that because I feel like it's always hard to find people that are like have the same like types of goals as you, is either as far as like some people just want to get together and sing, and that's fine. And depending on like where they're at, like, or maybe they want to get together and practice their rock band songs. So then you have to learn their songs, and then
people
nothing wrong with
grow
that.
Their own gardens.
They do.
People have their own intents.
But if you can find people that are like, hey, let's encourage each other to practice our instruments, and get together and, hold each other accountable, like, I think that's a whole nother thing that seems like that would be really, really beneficial for everyone on their own different level.
Yeah. I want to play again because I'm taking a class, and, I want to be really sharp, and I want to remember things. Yeah. That's one reason I'm thinking I need to, on days when I'm studying, I need to play music because it will help my brain juices. So is there anything else you want to tell our audience? Do you have any?
What I'm going with right now,
okay,
for me, like in my life, I guess, I'm pursuing different things. I didn't really mention it, but I'm getting my counseling license from CTS. I know when we were coming up the stairs, I said I was doing CTS.
Okay, yes.
And so I'm getting my counseling license there because the work that I want to do in music therapy is actually more mental health oriented and maybe community oriented. So it's like I'm doing something, I want to do something else, and I also want to do all these other things. So I don't necessarily have advice for that, except for just keep going and keep following your heart. I mean, if you're interested in something, keep pursuing it, and it may take a long time to get there, but as long as you keep following that thread of whatever it is, and don't give up just because there aren't opportunities. I think, for me, I've had to pursue more training. I could have gone out and tried to make stuff happen, but I felt like I want to be really good at this, so I'm going to train myself to the best I can, and then I'm going to move for it,
Okay.
But I guess that's my only advice. And I mean, like, even like creatively, artistically, like, like I've tried playing with different groups and different bands, and none of them have really been what I've wanted. And instead of staying with a band that wasn't really what I wanted, like I just kind of waited, and now I feel like I'm finally getting closer to what I really want to be doing. And so I think sometimes it just takes time, for those things, especially having a busy life, being a grown up. It's like really hard. You don't have all that time to sit around and either sit around and dream or sit around and figure out what it is. I mean, I'm always dreaming, but it's just taken a while for the pieces to fall into place for me to like even get close to what I'm interested in. So I just think it's a long journey, and you just sort of have to hang on to what's important to you and don't compromise that. And eventually you'll find people, places, or things that can help you like move towards that. But I just say just don't give it up and go for what's important to you, because eventually you'll find people that want that too, or
I see.
And
that sounds good.
Yeah, and I'd say try and get together with your community of I want people. I want, like you said, music to become a more of a prevalent thing in our culture. So I'd say do what you can to increase that. And we need people doing it in many different ways, for it to have that full effect.
Do you have anywhere online that people can find a way to connect with you? Do you have a website?
I don't have a website. Okay. I'd like to get one soon. Right now, I'm mostly email. Okay. So I could give my email.
Yeah. In case any listeners have a question about anything we've talked about.
Totally. I'd be happy to receive an email from someone listening today.
First, state your name.
Okay.
And spell it.
Yeah. My name is Leah Whitmire, Leah. Whitmire, Whitmire. And my email is leah@harmonygrovemusictherapy.com. That's all one word. So that's my LLC I created last year. Okay. But my email, leah@harmonygrovemusictherapy.com. Feel free to email me with any questions or anything.
Fantastic. Well, I hope with this episode people have found some inspiration or comfort and solace primarily.
Yeah.
While talking to Leah here. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Leah, for coming. I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, thank you, Jade.
I hope to have you on again. Yeah. Maybe next year.
Definitely. I'd love to.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and I hope you join me on the next episode of Artist Solace. Bye-bye.